Well, good afternoon to you from the Space Shuttle Flight Control Room here in Mission Control, Houston. I'm Josh Byerly with NASA Public Affairs. I'm standing here next to Chris Edelen. He's been the Orbit 2 flight director that we've worked with for the last, I guess we're more than halfway through this mission, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
All right, so let's talk about, Chris, how's the mission been going so far, and obviously we have undocking tomorrow, so talk a little bit about how big of a day that is and what all's on tap for the team here.
Okay, well, first of all, yes, it's been a very successful mission. We've installed the new MRM-1 module on the space station for the Russians. We've also replaced some spare batteries and brought up a spare high-gain KU band antenna. And tomorrow we do have undocking on plan for the crew during the afternoon.
We've talked about it a lot here on NASA TV about, and Mike Serafin mentioned it today during the mission status briefing, that, there's been a couple of snags with the orbiter boom sensor system cable and a couple of other challenges. There always are those kind of things that the team here has to address. But talk a bit about, as a flight director, how do you sort of coordinate the team here and how do you address those types of challenges that we have during these shuttle missions?
Well, we have a lot of resources here with the team, and you're right, every mission has its glitches. In our case, on this flight, the big glitch was a cable that was bound that prevented the OBSS, the boom camera, from being able to aim at the orbiter's wings during the inspection. And again, the real resource we have here are the smart people that can come up with a plan to work around the failure. Not only come up with a plan to get the most inspection accomplished that we could on flight day 2, but also to fix the cable that was stuck during EVA 2.
Now, one thing we have, I guess the biggest thing we have tomorrow is undocking, and Atlantis is going to say farewell to the station. Typically, this is done on Orbit 1, which is the first shift of the cruise day, but it's actually going to take place on our shift tomorrow. So talk a bit about, what kind of preparations are being made for us and the team here tomorrow to take care of that for the crew.
Yes, the flight control team today, as part of our preparations planning for undocking tomorrow, we reviewed the trajectory, the lighting conditions, and the computer setup for the crew. And we discussed those matters with the crew and provided some messages for them to review this evening. So the team will be ready tomorrow when it's time to undock.
Now, you started out as a station flight director, and now you're doing shuttle, which is actually two different things here at NASA. You have two different sort of training regimens you have to go through to become one or the other. So talk a bit about, how different is it, if you prefer one over the other, what are the differences between them?
Well, they both have their challenges. Fundamentally, the job is fairly similar between the two in terms of the flight director being the leader of the team of flight controllers on the ground that are monitoring the vehicle and helping the crew work through their procedures and maintain safe systems and replanning their activities. But in the details, the station and the shuttle are fundamentally different type vehicles. The shuttle can launch and land. It has to be able to perform atmospheric flight, and it can be brought back and repaired and fixed and ready for the next launch, whereas the space station has been on orbit already for over a decade, and it's going to remain operational at least through 2020. So the challenge with the station is that anything that breaks on board the space station must be repaired in space. So that's one of the big differences. And another big difference is that the space shuttle it functions like an airplane. The crew is there throwing the switches and working through the procedures, pushing the buttons, operating the computers mostly on board, whereas the space station is operated to a large extent from the ground. The flight controllers perform ground commanding to operate the various functions, and then that frees up the crew to be able to accomplish science and to be able to repair equipment when it needs fixing.
And I would also think that as a station flight director, you have to work with all the other flight control centers, too, around the world. And, shuttles pretty much, it is this room, pretty much. So, is that a big difference, too, that, you get to work with in the station room, the other partners, the other control centers?
Yeah, that's very true. The space shuttle is very self-contained. Mostly work with this team here in Houston, as well as our engineering counterparts that assist us. And whereas the space station, you're right, we interface with the Russians in Moscow, the Europeans in their control center, as well as our payload operations center in Huntsville, and the Japanese as well.
We've been taking a look back throughout this entire mission back at Atlantis' career, 25 years, 32 different flights. Have you had a moment to kind of reflect back on the fact that this is most likely Atlantis' last flight, and you're a major part of it along with the rest of this team? Has that hit you yet?
Well, we have reflected on it. I've reflected on it. The team and I have discussed it during quiet moments. But for the most part, when we're here, we're focusing on getting the mission done right and watching over the vehicle.
Now, where did you go to school? How did you get to NASA?
I'm a Hokie. I went to Virginia Tech.
Okay. What were you before you were flight director? What position did you serve here?
Like most flight directors, I started out in the ranks of flight controllers. I was started in the shuttle flight dynamics discipline. That's the shuttle trajectory operations. So managing the shuttle's flight path, and worked my way up from the back room into the front room, and then did rendezvous and orbit ops for several years, and then launch and landing. And in 2007, I was selected to be a flight director.
Okay, so you've been in this room, then down in the station room, and now you're back.
That's right.
As a shuttle leader. That's pretty interesting. You know, as you sit here and you work with this team, you know, what do you think is probably the coolest thing about being a flight director? 'Cause, I mean, we talk to flight directors all the time about, you know, the inner workings of the shuttle and working with a team. But for you, what is the most rewarding thing about leading this team here?
Well, the most rewarding thing is the people, just getting to work with a wide variety of people throughout JSC and the other centers here, and also the flight crews. So that's the best part. And the other really neat part is, as a FIDO, as a single discipline operator, it's always you're always sort of envious of the other guys that are getting to do neat work with the spacewalks, the robotics, and the different systems. And as a flight director, you really get to be involved and have a good overall view of the mission. And so that's a very rewarding part of the job.
You kind of have to know about a little bit about everything, including public affairs, don't you?
Just a little bit of that.
Last question: every flight director gets to pick a team name. So what is yours, and what is the meaning of it?
My team name is Venture Flight, and I picked that because I wanted something that would represent what NASA is really all about. A lot of people think NASA is all about technology, rocket engines, and computers and whatnot, but really we're about more than that. We're about exploring space, and the technology is just the tool that we use to explore. So I see us as carrying on in the tradition of the great explorers that have come before us. Humans started off in Africa, and over the millennia they've spread to all corners of the world, and now we have humans living 200 miles above the Earth. So the name Venture Flight, I believe, represents that universal human desire to explore the unknown.
That's pretty cool. Well, Chris, we appreciate your time. It's been really fun working with you on this shift. We're not done yet. We still have a few more days, but it's been an honor to work with you.
All right, thank you, Josh.
Thank you. All right, up next on NASA TV, this crew that we have, STS-132, they take some time before every flight to take a picture. It's a team photo. A lot of them have been movie posters and things like that. This crew actually did a little bit of a different method. They went to the Astros ballpark, Minute Maid Park here inside Houston, and got everybody there together. Mike Massimino actually followed along. Have you seen some of these videos? The behind-the-scenes videos? Yeah, they're interesting. We're going to take a look at Volume 4 of STS-132 behind the scenes as this crew went and took their official team photo before this STS-132 mission.